Hello, I am the Siopao Guy, and the June 2023 ban list has finally arrived! Yippee! Yay. Today I'll go over a ban list that the community really wanted, and they won't shut up about it, especially on Twitter. What's interesting is that this ban list dropped during a YCS event, so those players are probably really stressed right now. I'm looking at you, MBT. Cyberstein, Super Heavy Samurai Scarecrow, number 89 Diablos the Mind Hacker, Opponent of the Red Lotus, and Branded Expulsion are now in the forbidden list. While Cyberstein has barely been used in the metagame for the past couple of years, whenever someone does use it, the result is something that's very unhealthy and has been used in a plethora of FTK strategies in the past decade. Do you want to be burned 8,000 damage before your turn even starts? Well, you know what? Get rid of this card. Please, oh please. Super Heavy Samurai Scarecrow is surprising because depending on who you ask, Super Heavy Samurai is either the second or third best deck in the format. It's the classic solitaire style deck where your opponent makes this big multi-negate board off 1 or 2 card combos. What's shocking about this is that Super Heavy Samurai is a new competitive deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! The archetype, Super Heavy Samurai, has been around for a long time, but the deck just got new supports and it is fresh in the competitive scene. So this is confusing for many people because usually Konami avoids altering decks that are new. The card people are most happy about is number 89 Diablos the Mind Hacker finally being banned. Boy oh boy, this card was hated. This card to me was the problem card of the past 4 months in the format. People will say Arise Heart, but this card snipes out certain targets in your extra deck, forcing players to double up in their extra deck monster copies. It mills a plethora of your opponent's cards before they can even start their own turn. It is the card that is initiating all the zone locks for Kashtira Shangira. It's hard to draw the out or prep against Kashtira if your best cards are being milled and your best extra deck options are also being eliminated from the game. I do think this will definitely turn Kashtira to a tier 2, maybe tier 3 deck in the coming months. I believe that this is such a big hit for the deck that Kashtira will end up being a rogue deck by the end of this year. No doubt. Opponent of the Red Lotus is strange because people don't really play this card anymore. It's a powerful card that people did complain about a year ago because you can see your opponent's hand and you can get rid of a vital card from their hand on their turn. But even if Opponent of the Red Lotus was at 3 in the TCG, I don't think Opponent of the Red Lotus would even be played all that much. A strange card to be banned, but it is still a powerful card, and I don't mind this ban. Branded Expulsion, a card that helps branded players fuse more on your turn. Branded is a deck that people generally don't like because it's been played to death for so long. I remember when Branded came out, it was considered the savior of Yu-Gi-Oh! Well, months later, boy oh boy, can we please move on from Branded. It doesn't help that the deck is also very popular in Master Duels, so you're always going to see Branded in some way or form, whether it be your locals or regional tournaments or YCS or even on Master Duels, even on EDO Pro, on Dueling Book, people will always play Branded. Branded has been the 4th or 5th best deck depending on who shows up at the tournaments that day. Please, oh please, can we move on from Branded? We gotta move on for realsies. And so for the limited list here, Blaster Dragon Ruler of Infernos. Now, people have been saying we want Dragon Rulers back. Legitimately, I personally want to see the Dragon Rulers back because I just want to see how this tier 0, one of the all-time favorite decks of all time in Yu-Gi-Oh! I want to see how it does in a modern sense. And people generally know that the Dragon Rulers, if they did come back in full power, would essentially just be like cards that could be used for Dragon Link. That's the idea, right? But for Blaster coming out, the reason for why I believe it's Blaster is because we have a Legendary Duelist fire set coming out where the entire theme is nothing but fire monsters. And so maybe, just maybe, there's going to be a player out there, or Konami has some idea for supporting fire monsters, and Blaster is going to be part of that plan. That's what I'm thinking here. Now, in the past 3 years, my favorite deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! Has been Mathmech, and Mathmech Circular has been limited. That is a huge hit. Big shout out here for Kyle Waterbury. That guy has been playing his butt off, topping every regional tournament he can with Mathmech. 2 consecutive first place regional tournament victories for Kyle Waterbury. He's been playing Mathmech great. Mathmech Circular legitimately does hard carry that deck into being at times the best deck in the room. People generally, except for Joshua Smith, people generally do not mind Mathmech Circular. It can do a couple wild things like location, hand looping you, and getting rid of a couple cards. Like, it is such a power, and also it gives you a negation. Mathmech Circular is an overpowered, broken, busted card, and I get and I understand as to why people would not want to play against Mathmech anymore. Joshua Smith and Jesse Cotton, they played against Mathmech so often and so much, and the deck profile and deck list for Mathmechs are often very similar in terms of ratios, that it is kind of tiring to go see, you know, Mathmech, summon Splash Mage, go into Update Jammer, then you go for Access Kotak for game, blah blah. That's pretty much every like end of every Mathmech game ever. So yes, Mathmechs, I love you, you're my favorite deck of all time, but we kind of have to move on from you because Circular is just too good. It really is. Psyframe Gear Gamma. Why is this card limited? I know it is semi-limited in the OCG. I know that Psyframe Gear is at times the best hand trap in the game. At times. It really was the best hand trap, and some like Psyframe Gear Gammas were like $10 per copy at one point in 2021 because it was that darn good. Just right now in the current format, it is still a really powerful card, but you still have to draw into it, and you're at times getting the driver, and it's just a very inconsistent card. Like, it feels bad when you gamma somebody or somebody gammas you, because you can't really do anything about that really. It's a great way to counter like draw and lock, because you activate a spell card, you get the search off, and if your opponent activates draw and lock, you can then go activate Gamma, and you can go get yourself a free Secret material, a free Secret monster, or a 2 monster link. It's a really darn good strong card, but it has never ever been seen as a problem card ever in Yu-Gi-Oh! We accept it as a very strong card, but not really like a busted card that needs to be limited. Do I think people are going to play this card? No. With just one Gamma, one driver. I just do not see it happening. No. So for Denglong, first of the Yang Zing, broken card in 2016. What can it be used today? Well, it can be used along with Sword Soul, a deck that was the best deck in the entire format in early 2020, for the first half of 2022, for about 7 months straight. Yeah, I generally do believe that Sword Soul will make a comeback in this next upcoming format here with Denglong. There's also, beyond Denglong, I also see like Triff Gaming or some madman out there, probably me, trying to test out some Yang Zing Pendulum cards with Denglong. I can see like a weird world where that's gonna be done, but for the most part, I see Denglong being used in Sword Souls, can be experimented in Sword Soul. I won't be surprised if we're gonna see a couple first place tops from Sword Soul with Denglong. Is it gonna be overpowered, broken, and busted? No, because Sword Soul was always a very strong, powerful deck that you respected, but was not busted. So I'm surprised about Denglong, but it's really cool that we're seeing this busted card here that's been gone since like for the past 7 years. And it's not going to be in the metagame. I just love to see that. Kashtira, a Rice Heart. This card in Diablos, people hate those too. And personally for me, I never understood the hate for Rice Hearts. I never really did. So what made a Rice Heart really strong was the fact that it was essentially 2 broken cards in one, and it's super easy to summon. It's essentially a Trident / living walking Macrocosmos. So it was a Dark Law with 3000 attack, and it can pop an opponent on their turn, and you can summon this very easily. Yeah, it really is like it looks like and feels and plays like a custom Yu-Gi-Oh card. Now with this card going to 1, if you pop this guy once, if you defeat this card once, you don't have to deal with him again. One aspect of Kashtira that a lot of people usually have to skim over is the fact that this deck, although it is a great OTK machine, it can play the grind game. It can play out the grind game, and at times actually can, because there's so many slots, there's like 12 to 15 slots within the Kashtira deck that's nothing but tech cards. They can play the grind game, and they can adjust themselves through the side deck in games 2 and game 3. They can try to OTK you in the first turn, they can zone lock you in the first turn, they can just go a Rise Hard pass, and they can beat you up through the grind game. Kashtira is a very powerful deck that can beat you in multiple ways, which is one of the reasons why it's so difficult to like side in against a Reister. But with a Reister being at 1, it limits that chance of Kashtira beating you out once you get to turn 4. Because one thing that MBT said was that he felt like Yugioh was going back to that old 2017 style of Yu-Gi-Oh gameplay where the first like 5 turns, that's about, like, you never go to turn 6 ever. You never do. Like, it's established on turns 1 and 2 what happened, and then maybe, just maybe, you'll go to up to turn 5. But Kashtira Rice Heart, I never found a problem with this card really. It's got no protection. You can change up Hearted, you can Regeki it, you can Dark Hole it, Evenly Match, Lightning Storm it. You can Kaiju it. There's no protection for a card that's essentially like a bigger version of Dark Law mixed in with Trident. 2 very powerful busted cards, I admit. But even then, like with Kashtira being limited, or Rice Heart being limited, and Diablos being gone, this deck, tier 2, tier 3. Okay. Purely Delicious Memory. So this one, okay, just like Super Heavy Samurai, I don't understand Purely being hit in the limited list, but the reason as to why that is, like from what my logic is the fact that Purely right now is the best deck in the OCG, and it is expected to be the best deck in the TCG after a couple months. So right now they're hitting Purely early, and it's a very strange situation we're in right now in Yu-Gi-Oh! Where it used to be a thing where people would always complain like, oh man, we want diverse formats, we want the best decks to be like weekend. But right now we kind of want like busted cards that are broken, that are decisively winning. That's why there's like a vocal minority people out there, very vocal minority, that really like missed tier limits, or even missed when that time frame when it was like just like Sword Soul and like Brandon at that time. Nateria Sacred Tree, I don't understand why they're hitting Nateria, the Nateria Sprite. It is a fun deck, and it has gotten consistent tops in almost every tournament. You're going to see one Nateria deck top among a top 32 in any major Yu-Gi-Oh event, whether it be a YCS or a regional, or even an online tournament. You knock out Nateria Sacred Tree, or you limit to 1, and you lose out in the grind game and its consistency game, and you're just making a deck that was just barely fighting through as being a meta contender to being just, you know, you're borderline there still. like this really doesn't do much in terms of really affecting the meta, to be honest with you. And then we go to semi-limit, Herald of Orange Light. Let's go to my Tron players. Offers a negate, and with Cyframe Gamma being gone, or being limited to 1, this is a good way for fairy-based players, specifically Tron players, to get a chance to play. Kashtira Unicorn, 1-card combo. We gotta knock this off. Kashtira Unicorn does not, that card should not exist. It shouldn't exist. It's a searcher, it's a summon, and it can go knock out like a specific card from like your opponent's extra, like, oh my gosh, it's so good, so good. Lightning Storm being semi-limited, nobody really complained about Lightning Storm. Oh no, I lied, scratch that. People did complain about Lightning Storm, but they complain about Lightning Storm the same way people complain about just randomly losing to a Harpy's Feather Duster, or to an Evenly Match, or to a Regeki. Like, you know this card exists out there, you just have to hope that your opponent just doesn't draw it. Runic Fountain, I can safely say this right now, almost nobody likes Runics. Nobody, especially on Master Duels. Sky Striker Mobilize Engage is at 2, semi-limited. We seriously gotta stop thinking about Sky Striker being the best deck in the TOS format, okay? TOS format was, wait, was it 6 years ago? It was 6 years ago. If for those of you who don't know, Sky Striker Mobilize Engage was the most hated card in all of Yu-Gi-Oh for over a year. It was that darn good. You go into engage, into another engage, your ability to go get card advantage and resources was insane for Sky Strikers. Now here's the thing, what I believe. Even if this card went to 3, and with the new Sky, by the way, Sky Strikers getting a new Link Monster, good for them, finally. I think Sky Strikers will top a couple, I think it's gonna pass in Trio Sprites, and I do believe it's gonna have more success than even Branded in the upcoming like major tournaments that happen in the next like 4 or 5 months. I do believe that. So for Engage coming in, I don't mind it. People hate Engage, but that was 6 years ago, and we got to move on from it. Sprite Starter, I forgot about Sprites. No, Sprites is one of those, like, it is a really good deck that in theory should be just as good, if not like the number 1, number 2 best deck in the format. I believe that. Like, Sprite Starter is like in the same like realm of like Super Heavy Samurai, of the solitaire base deck that can play through hand traps and can make a multi-negate board, but it's not seen enough, and I'm not really sure why that is. So the semi-limit really doesn't do much for Sprite, other than the fact that we're going to see it a lot less than we already are not seeing it enough. So that's the Forbidden limited card list for June of 2023. Finally, about darn time. Now, can people stop complaining about the ban list not coming soon enough? We finally got the ban list, and we gotta go, and we gotta move on. You know what? If this format is not for you, and I can safely say there's a lot of people who don't like this type of format where it's ultra diverse and you can't really prep up for certain decks here. I think I remember seeing a recent Twitter post where MBT fought against 5 completely different decks in the YCS he's currently attending in, and because of that, it's just like it's really just jarring. It's really annoying for some players. Some people love diversity. I love diversity. I love going to a tournament and seeing 5 or 10 different people play different decks. There are some people who want to be the guy or girl playing the one weird deck while everyone else is playing like a tier 0. I get it. I really do. If everyone's super, no one is super. It's harder to prep against diverse formats than it is tier 0 formats. You can ask Joshua Smith, you can ask Jesse Cotton, you can ask MBT. There are many players out there who are perfectly fine, and they're doing honestly their best run ever playing in a diverse format. And there's even some players who would in no way win these tournaments if it was just a tier 0 format. I'm being perfectly honest here. And the fact that this format is diverse and it's not meant for everyone, feel free to take a break. You don't have to enjoy the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Your enjoyment of a game or a hobby is based on your personal expectations. And if what you enjoy is a format where you have a small finite of strong decks and everything else is like mid to below average, then if that's your type of gameplay, then yeah, good for you. If that's not your style, then you can leave. If you prefer tier 0 formats, if you prefer diverse formats, all up to you as a player. And for this current game of Yu-Gi-Oh, it's not going to change. It's still going to be an ultra mega diverse format where there's no way you can prep up your side deck for every single matchup. You're going to randomly play against the Cubic player. You're going to randomly play against the Traptrix player. You're going to randomly play against the Labyrinth player. You're randomly going to play against a Hero player. You're randomly going to play against a Pure Runic player who's going to try to mill you out and have no fun. You're randomly going to get matched up against a Cashed Hero player. You're randomly going to get matched up against Super Heavy Samurai. You're randomly get matched up against a Madolche. I'm the Siopao Guy. Feel free to like and subscribe if you want to. You totally don't have to if you don't want to do so, but really cool if you did. And so until next time, see you later.